So I was not expecting to cry during this book, especially since it was a prequel to the entire series, but by the end, I was wrecked. So I just recently read The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. It is a YA fantasy and it is part of the Throne of Glass series, in case you were not aware, but it is actually a prequel to the entire series, and it's actually a collection of short stories just kind of explaining Celaena's background and like where she came from and everything that happened before the first book. And so it kind of gives you the background information of Celaena. My final rating was 4.25, but I am honestly still kind of going back and forth between 4.25 and 4.5. I think I am going closer to 4.5 just because of the emotional aspect that I had with it, but I'm still trying to decide between 4.25 and 4.5. Even though this is a prequel, I did read this as the third book. So I read Throne of Glass, then I read Crown of Midnight, and then I read The Assassin's Blade. There's so many ways that people are saying to read this. In my personal opinion, the way that I read it, I thought was perfect. Now, it's hard to say that because obviously I didn't read it any other way, and so it's kind of hard to compare. However, I will say I really believe that the emotional aspect of it was because of the order that I read this in. I feel like if I read this book first as an actual prequel and then started the series, it wouldn't have been as emotional, or it just wouldn't have been as exciting for me, because I am that type of person that I love when movies or books or things come out and then later down the road they come out with prequels. So you like get background information and you get all this information on how the character's story was or their background, or you get a little bit more, and it's really neat to kind of see, oh, that's where that came from, or oh, that's how they met that person, or whatever the case is. I personally enjoy that. I know some people don't like that. They like to kind of start from the very beginning, get all the information, and go through the series. But this was the way the author published the series, and so I think for me, it just worked. I do believe that reading it as the third book worked. I've also seen people read it as the fourth book, and I've heard that that's a great way too. Okay, so some things that I enjoyed, not enjoyed about this book, just kind of some pros and cons about this book was, first of all, it started out really slow. The first two short stories, I was completely bored, and I was almost to the point where I was like, I'm gonna just put this down. I don't know if I care that much about Celaena's backstory, and I don't know if I really want to try to get all this information, so I'm just not gonna read the book, and that's just kind of how I felt. However, once I got past those first two, that's when I started connecting with the book and really enjoyed it, and it started getting more engaging and then obviously more emotional on my end. There was a character in the book that actually became one of my favorites. Even though her relationship was kind of challenging, I really enjoyed the character because I thought she was funny, I thought she was outgoing, and she was just really strong, and her backstory actually just kind of broke me. Like, I thought it was a really impactful backstory. And then, of course, if you have read this series towards the end of the prequel, so this was one of those, I think that it was more emotional for me just because I knew it was coming because I had read the books before. But like, if you didn't read the books before, like, you wouldn't have known it was coming. So it may still be emotional, but I think because I knew this situation was going to happen from the very beginning, it's like the entire book I was anticipating it, and it was like building up to it, and I was just not ready for it. So I think that's why it was more emotional for me, because I kind of already knew it was coming. But man, when it hit me, and I honestly was not expecting it to hit me that much. Like, I really was not expecting to cry. So yeah, this was a 4 stars for sure, if not 4.25 stars for me. I'm really glad I read it when I read it, the way that I read it. If you are one of those that loves emotional prequel books, you get the background information, you get more of the backstory of the main character, or really even side characters as well, this book is for you. Especially if you want it emotional, read it third or fourth in the series. But if that doesn't matter to you and you love just starting out knowing all the information, then read it first by all means. Overall, The Assassin's Blade was full of heartbreak, growth, understanding, a little bit of emotional emotional weight. One verse that came to mind when I was reading this was Psalm 34:18, which says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." There is a lot of loss in this story, or just, kind of figuring things out, because it's the beginning of her story, and it reminded me that even in pain and betrayal, God is never distant. Even when we're confused, even if we've been betrayed, even if we are going through a lot of pain and a lot of misunderstanding or confusion or just heartbreak, man, He is near to us. And even in the parts of our story that feel like they are going to break us, He is there, and He has not left us, and He is near and dear to us even more than we expect. So if you read this one, I'd love to hear your thoughts and just your opinions. Which way did you read it? Did you read it first? Did you read it third, fourth? What was the order? Or if you've read the entire series, what is your rating of the series overall? I am absolutely loving this series. I do believe it's going to be a possible 5-star series overall. I did not think I would enjoy it as much as I have so far, but let me know your thoughts. Thanks for joining me, and until I see you next time, peace out.